All right, let me relaunch the program this way. If I heard correctly, and I do think I heard correctly, Vance Davis, who was former NSA, has said to Richard and myself and all of you just now that myself, as well as Vance, as well as Richard, are all unwitting dupes of the government behind the government. That is what you said, is it not?
That is what I said. And the media falls into that category also. The information age is so fast and so furious that people are not checking out their facts, their stories, among other things. It used to be, Art, when I was still in NSA in the 80s, that CNN, a new startup news organization, used to beat us to the punch on intelligence.
Well, they probably still do.
In some cases, they do. It's a matter that even they've lost a touch of that. And, of course, we have the great turns of stories and how they try to bend things and throw things. We have it within the UFO community just as bad. It's human nature to do that.
Well, then, Vance, the following assumption can be made, and that is that the only way you're able to say on my radio program tonight what you're saying, the only way you're able to say that is because they want it said, which makes you an agent of disinformation or of a partial truth, or even a truth that they, in quotes, want out. Is that a correct assessment, Richard?
That is a very correct assumption.
Richard,
and assessment.
Art, let me take a stab at this. All right. I mean, obviously, I do not consider myself a fool. I have spent with my colleagues 15 years against very considerable odds trying to get one agency, NASA, to be held accountable for a set of extraordinary images with stunning implications taken 20 years ago.
I know.
This spring, with the help of this audience listening tonight, we got 3 sets of images. And the lies and the deception and the double dealing on those images would fill 10 history books, with people like Van Flandern on the one hand saying it's 1 billion to 1 now that they're not natural. You have the official government line. It's all over. It's tricks of light and shadow, end of discussion. And for a lot of people not in the fray, they believe we're right or we're wrong and they're right. But there are other things going to come. Let me give you my take, all right? You asked a very perceptive question a while ago, and that was if what Vance is discussing tonight is accurate, if there were missiles fired across Tokyo to either, disinter or to attack a target or hit a nuclear reactor, and someone revealed that information a la Vance tonight on he and me last night,
somebody's in deep...
James said somebody would be in jail. Let me tell you why that's not happening.
Okay.
And it has to do with what happened to Flight 800, TWA 800. Around 800, as you know, I got pulled into this by people calling me, very similar to what's happened in the last few days, giving me information, stories from military sources, from FAA sources, from pilot sources, from Boeing engineer sources. And my conclusion, even before you found Commander Donaldson, was that aircraft was shot down with a missile. But why then would everyone go along with a cover-up, from the FBI to the White House to the Navy to the NTSB, et cetera, et cetera? Because if there is an internal war, Art, between factions of this government, and everybody's enemy is the public, they may have enemies among themselves, but the greater enemy is the public, because the public, if they get awakened, can bring a stop to it. Then it's in everyone's interest not to tip the scales too far to reveal the presence of the war. If you start arresting people and putting them in Leavenworth and having trials for leakage of information, you basically tip your hand that there is an internal civil war going on.
Well, you validate the information in the eyes of the
And then
public.
you validate the information.
Exactly.
And then, for the same reason that Vance and company were let go with honorable discharges, when by all rights they should have been made absolute examples of what you do not do when you are serving God and country.
Yeah, absolutely. Big rocks into little rocks at Leavenworth.
Yep. So the fact that did not happen means that the the preservation of the secrecy on the internal war supersedes everything on both sides, and it's not just two sides, it's more than two sides. That being the case, I can give you more sources, in addition to Vance, who have called us, who we've talked to, some with, voice changers, that's how paranoid, who are telling similar stories. And
with regard to the Korean incident?
No, this is earlier, all right?
All right.
When I said last night to to Major Dames, it's because these honorable, patriotic, soldiers are now believing they have been sold out, that they have been lied to, that their Constitution is in the process of being tattered right in front of their eyes, that the chain of command is disintegrating. I was not whistling Dixie. I was telling it exactly as I perceive it from first-hand sourcing.
And with the statements that I have had sent to me, Art, of what was said of that talk, Ed Dames confirmed it. Very much so, because the true power does lie in the hands of the people. The people have the power to change, to request, to enforce.
Well, what Ed Dames said was that there was, in fact, in essence, a government within a government. There were things that Intel knew that presidents didn't know and should have known. That's a government within a government.
Correct. And that also, that government within the government has a policy that the public is too uneducated to handle the truth. So they feed false truth and mix it with some truth.
Let's see, but for the sake of Richard, Richard, for the for the sake of this discussion, let's assume it's all true, and that there is this secret government within our government, one that would actually subvert the Constitution, our entire way of life, the USA, blah, blah, blah. There's no way that I could believe that this group would allow this kind of exposure without killing somebody.
And that's the chance, Art, I'm
taking.
When you
create bodies, Art...
I mean, I'm being as blunt as I can here.
Arthur, when you create bodies, you create questions.
Well, look at...
The key parameter is to keep questions from being asked, to relegate those of us who are pressing the envelope, seeking hard answers, to the fringe, to the ignored.
Okay, every single day I get email from a gazillion people giving me a list of the bodies around President Clinton. It's endless.
Yes.
The evil people have associated with President Clinton have died. So if they would do that, then they would certainly dispatch a Vance Davis without blinking twice.
Correct, and they didn't. Let me bring up something that happened that changed our case, I believe, Art and Richard, very much in 1990.
What?
We were in solitary confinement. We were kept in cages that were not used for years. And I guarantee you, we were not going to be heard from, seen, because we were not allowed to make phone calls to our family, to friends, anybody. Mm-hmm. We were muffled, completely and utterly.
Mm-hmm.
Now, as a civilian, you look at, oh, yeah, they're intelligent, they're going to be questioned. Okay? But something happened in Fort Benning, Georgia, that changed the whole process. A certain media, a cameraman from CNN, mm-hmm. climbed over a high-security fence in Fort Benning, Georgia, to get photographs of us.
Really?
That changed on August 10th, the whole story, because all of a sudden, everything leaked out all over the news. And August 7th, a story appeared in Army Times. And when they were told directly, the person in charge, the colonel, was told not to report a thing, and he did anyway. That is a fact.
Boy, I'll tell you, strange stuff.
Which means there was someone who understood due process and constitutional law and the Uniform Code of Military Justice and following the letter of the law, not making the law unto yourself.
And we did change some things. We were the first to ever do this in the history of the United States. And most likely, we will be the last as a group. Because they did change the military justice booklet to make sure this doesn't happen again.